Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Today we have gathered here for Rochelle Potker's book launch, Coins and Rivers, freshly minted from the press, just been out for the past fortnight. And my friends, today the tables are turned, you won't have to suffer me much. Rochelle will do the speaking. So I have um, read the book and it's delicious to say the least. And it's also got a lot of poems. It's double the size of a regular poetry book. So
That's a complaint, okay?
oh no, that's wonderful. One gets two books for the price of one. Um, so we'll have a little discussion and some recitation by Rochelle. So to give you a flavor of the book, and then we can also have a round of discussion with everyone. All right. So welcome to Delhi.
Thank you very much.
Fine. So Rochelle and I
And
have
good
known.
evening, everybody.
Rochelle and I have known each other for a decade, but in Delhi we are having an event for the first time together.
Absolutely.
It's been
Absolutely.
outside Delhi. So.
Yeah.
So let's start with the title. What about it? It's of course a very intriguing title and a very interesting one, very provocative one. Coins and rivers, we all have images associated with it. We all have seen coins and rivers and wells.
Yeah.
So please.
So I can actually, start by joking and saying that because poetry doesn't sell, at least the coins are there on the cover. But in actuality, this book, when it was coming about in its very random way, like when it was not even a book, but like clutches of poems written here, there, everywhere. When I collated it and sectioned it into different sections that might be relatable, then I thought of it as poems always disrupt you or they disturb you. So they're very inglorious, according to me. So this was called the Inglorious Coins of the Counting House. And it won its long list and its short list in 2 international prizes with that title. The Inglorious Coins of the Counting House. But when it reached Hachette, maybe nearly 2 years later, okay. So there's also this little story of this book, like I wanted, once it won a shortlist or a long list, I was thinking कि कुछ मजा आना चाहिए ना. It has to move up a rung. Not that I have a problem with indie publishers or small publishers, but I was like, what's the point of it getting a long list or short list? When you translate it back home, something has to change.
Yeah.
We are Indians and bargain hunters, but besides that, we are monkeys. We want to climb one rung up. So nothing was happening there. So I kept it away for 2 years, the book, and I said I will forget about it. And there was some poet, I don't know whether you were one of those friends, but there were many other friends who were like, what are you doing with that book? And I was like, nothing. I'm going to keep it away till I feel good enough. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I should feel ideal about it. So I kept it away, and then when I happened to when I was pitching my screenplays, I was back in the pitching business, pitching my screenplays, and I was like, I had that book, this book, 2 for the price of 1 book. So I was like, okay, let me pitch again. I pitched, and when the editor took it up, she was like, she was championing it. So I almost thought at every point, it's going to come back with a no. Because come on, yeah, mainstream publishers don't publish poetry as much. Yeah. So I was waiting for that no, and I was like, koi baat nahi, at least try to kiya. But she came back saying, it's happened. Okay. Because I love the poem so much, and I'm not a poetry editor. But I like the poems, I resonate with it, and I printed each poem and shared it with my team, and they also resonated with it. So ye ho gaya. That day was very surreal for me. But she said, but one thing will have to happen, the title will have to change, it will have to become a little shorter. It's too big for anyone to recall. Not everyone will. And I was thinking about it, can you kill your darlings? Then I thought about it and I was like, okay, this is not as big a sacrifice. So we took one of the section breaks. So the coins remained. We took one of the section breaks because all of it was anyway a coin imagery, and we took that, and I think that worked because I'm also a hibernier. For me, when I just kind of shared it with few friends, family, okay, what do you think of coins and rivers? They said, oh, we can see it. And I said, if you can see it, matlab baat ban gayi. Because everyone felt that it was a wishing well or it was something very beautiful. And later when I started when this title started growing on me, I realized that coins have such a connection with civilization. Between the flipping of the coins, it's the story of the hunter and the hunted. Even rivers spark civilizations. Where rivers are, there are civilizations. Where rivers are not, civilizations soon start vanishing because it's a desert. So somehow or the other, it worked. And even the cover of this book, that also there were so many kind of designs. There were nearly 8 designs, and this one really meant everything. Like it just fell into place, and that's how this happened.
Right, wonderful. The coin poem I spotted first in the book is outside the coins section. The book is divided into 5 sections, or 6, is it? Right. But this one is in a different section altogether. It's called compatibilities, and it's a very so this one is in your casino token section, so which of course qualifies for a coin.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting poem in the sense that it juxtaposes a man and a woman narrator, and the stark difference between their approach to life. So I'll just read out the first 2 stanzas, and then you can talk about it, and then I have a larger question emanating from this.
Yeah.
Compatibilities. He's a piggy bank, put in a coin of kindness, and he says, stays smiling on the outside, snug in the corner of a child's room. I am an attaché of green in a dealer's dirty hands, exchanged and bartered for arson and ransom. In bloodied hands, my value is the same. Hoard for the next big thing, the stakes are changing. So there's a very distinct change of tone also in the way the poet persona has approached the man and the woman.
Right.
And I see that you bring out this difference in a lot of other poems as well. In the sense that there is a very self-aware female voice, and which is juxtaposed with how a man would approach. So my question to you is, are you self-aware about the different approaches that men and women have to things? And you personally, as a writer, do you think of yourself as a woman writer, therefore, or do you not like that label? So your other poem, Rape Fantasies, which if you'd like to read later, or whichever one you would like to read. So Rape Fantasies is about a woman's rape fantasy, which goes on for 2 pages, and then it bundles up with a man's rape fantasy, which is only 2 lines.
Right.
And I completely agree with that, how that approach is, and it's a very important statement to make. These statements are not made generally, one shies away from it. So, yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you draw a parallel that, okay, there's a female and a male point of view in both this piggy bank wala poem and rape fantasies. Now, to answer the first part of your question is that I don't want to be a female writer or a female also sometimes. I want to be an atom. I want to be non-gendered. I want to be not of any religion, not of any color. I would like to be nothing also. That would be the best thing to be. But in the world that you live in and you walk through, you are made aware and reminded of who you are. And a lot of your signifiers and identifiers come from what the world wants to tell you who you are. So I think many a times that when I have walked in the streets of Bombay, if I have been unguarded and if there has been street harassment, I'm aware I'm a woman. Otherwise I'm not, no? So if somebody reminds me of my biological clock that needs to tick and I need to have a baby, then I remember I'm a woman. So I think this experience of being a human and the experience of the poetry that you write is always parallel. That when I was more of a woman in the city, there would be all these women poems and stories from a female gaze, and even if there was a story from the male gaze, like I have a title in my short story collection called Bombay Hangovers. So there's this title called The Arithmetic of Breasts, and it's from a male point of view of what the breast is, but it's an ode to the breast. The female is a quieter character, but it is her breast and him, and we're talking about it. But there's a lot of how do you say, street harassment and rage from street harassment that is being channelized into satire. So if I'm not reminded I'm a woman, I don't want to be a woman. I want to be an atom in the galaxy, if that's possible.
Or wild love,
Or a citizen in the world. Why do I need to have? But I'm reminded constantly so that I am. And when I have issues related to being a woman, then I answer as a woman. So I will be called a female writer if I need to kind of push a petition, say if there's no equality towards that kind of writing. So wherever you need to pitch, how do you say, women-centric films, because they are not funded enough, you call it women-centric films. Otherwise, why do we call it that? We just say it's a good story. So that, and so then you will find, places in this book which are very from the woman's gaze, but you'll also find where I have not been. I've been a citizen in the world.
Sure.
And that's why you'll find some political pieces which move
Do
out
you
of that.
think then that there is a need for a female gaze because there's been such a long history of male gaze and circumscribing the woman's
Absolutely,
body?
absolutely.
Therefore,
There needs to be a female gaze because it kind of will balance the cockeyedness that's there, first and foremost. And there needs to not just be a female gaze, there needs to be a child gaze, there needs to be an animal gaze, there needs to be a nature gaze, there needs to be environment gazing at humanity. We need a lot more gazes, not just male gaze. We need many gazes. We need 100 gazes actually from every side to tell the story of what's happening to
what's
this.
happening.
Yeah. And rape fantasy, just to talk about it, is that, okay, that was one poem wherein, when you have a title like rape and fantasy put together, it's very scary because even if you are blatant in your expressions,
Yeah.
you still worry ki what if someone takes it wrong? What if
It's a
they
very,
don't
very
read
thin
it?
line.
Yeah. So, and you're always worried. But so I wrote it. When I write, I'm very wild and I don't think of censorships. But it's only when you're putting it out there, you're thinking twice because you have a responsibility of what you put out. So I did think a little bit about it, but my initial readers said no, just go with it, go with it. And one of the strongest feminists, who's a Marathi poet, she wanted to translate rape fantasy. She translated rape fantasies into Marathi, so she was like, so they get it. So then I'm like, okay.
Right. Great. So, apart from this, you have another set of erotic poems, not just in this book, but previously also you've written, and that's a subgenre, let's say, that's coming up these days. Lots of people are trying it, but also once again, the way women write it, the way men write it, and I think men shy away from it a little bit.
At least you do.
At
That's
least
what
I
you
do.
told me.
Um,
Yeah.
So, also, would you like to talk about them and also their reception?
See, I think, so actually speaking, I don't think sensuality, sexuality should be so shied away from. It's one part of life, so just like any other aspect of life, this is one part of it. So I never found it different. It's only when I hear, say, a question like this or like some reception somewhere, then I start thinking, was there something so unusual about it? Because if there's sexual violence in society, if there's fear, shame, guilt all around women's sexuality, then so is desire there, right? I mean, it doesn't hide away. And also, we must reach a point where female sexual desire is not judged. So I'm always searching for that space.
Do you
wherein-
think we are there, or have you been judged for it?
I mean to say, I do remember I had read some erotic poem at some place long ago, and I said the same thing. Ki I don't want to be judged for this desirous piece. And soon after that,
were judged.
no, soon after that, I asked for a date.
Okay.
So because it was like she wants it, maybe, or like
Not just judged, but the verdict was pronounced as well.
it looked like a pickup line,
Right.
my pickup line. So,
Right. So I asked this question because this has happened quite often.
yeah.
And Mridula Gargi, who's a very esteemed writer, she was going to be arrested for her writing in Chit Cobra of female desire.
Right.
This is the 80s, of course.
Yes.
But the deal was a lot of such stuff was being written by men. But that a woman can use a man for her sexual desire, when men using women is very common.
Right.
And very raunchy, very erotic stuff, very violent stuff has also been written. But when a woman did the same, she was nearly arrested for it and needed court intervention and all that.
Yeah.
And which is why it's tricky.
Right.
And you being self-aware, writing from that position, you
So now at least I think some things have changed, but I'm not sure how much. Yeah, some things might have changed.
and this needs to be
Yeah,
out there
at least
to
I have not
bring
been,
that balance,
I
of
have not
course.
gone to court, so something might have changed. Yeah, yeah,
You've not just run into the
yeah. I've been at the right places. Yeah,
right, you've
yeah.
been at the right places. Let's change the tone tenor of it. There's also a lot of fun poems that you've written, which are essentially cultural poems
Yeah.
that some cultures observe closely, their family matters, how people interact, or how they use language, the flavor of the society poems, let's
Yes,
say. I
yes.
like to.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
one of them is Harry Mendonça in this book. Would you like to read it?
It's a little longish poem. I mean, would you want to hear it? Okay. Somehow, whatever Amit has chosen as his favorite poems, because see, wherever I go to read, I ask the moderator or the conversationalist, which are your favorite poems? And then whatever he suggests, because I take that as a feedback of sorts. So he suggested all the long poems. Okay. Okay, this one. So before I speak a lot about it, but I'll just mention a preamble. So definitely, as a social observer, so I've been not a literature student. I came to creative writing by being a social observer. I realized much later because you always look back, right, to think, how did I come here? How did I become a writer or a poet? But then that was one. Being a dreamer was the other. So I think when I lived in my Catholic community in Kalyan, I would notice all my Christian neighbors and community folk. Harry Mendonça is not from there, luckily, huh? Otherwise, I would be in trouble, defamation and all. But but there were community people, and long ago I was like applying for an ad job, and I had catalogued one character who, imagine, you living with all your brands, and somehow this came together as that poem. Okay. So this is this side when I speak is the gossipers, because there are always gossipers at funerals and gossipers everywhere. So I love the gossiper because I feel the gossiper is very close to the fiction writer who's watching everything from every side and doing their khusur pusur. I love khusur pusur.
Absolutely.
So, Harry Mendonça. Harry Mendonça, may his tribe decrease, died on a vacation in Siliguri at 98 on 27 January 2018, quite unexpectedly. He, the consumer of Amul butter, Limca Lipton tea, lover of crackjack biscuits, gold spot Parle G, an old monk and bagpiper on Christmas Eves. They found in his side cupboard 20 styles of brooms, 4 harps, 5 mouth organs, a sauce bottle that had turned black, items from the flea market, and a bag of chips from 1976. Anyway, he was the user of Old Spice, Colgate Palmolive, Dettol, Amrutanjan balm, Borosil for burns, Dabur talcum powder, and Gillette shaving cream. They found under his mattress a diary of how he killed the neighborhood dogs, Polaroids and drawings of torture of birds and cats, some occult diagrammatic stuff. Anyhow, he is survived by his son Roger, daughter Alva, grandchild Jane, wife Olga, predeceased by brother John, father James, mother Jean. Roger discovered letters with revealing photos of several women, unopened, unused gifts atop his cupboard, a box of sardonic emails for all the neighbors, a gift to be opened only after his death of a cock ring, massage oils, and vibrator. Anyhow, he was a wearer of Bombay dyeing, Bata chappals, Raymond, purchaser of Reynolds pens, Bajaj scooter, Gold flake, was always thrilled to travel Air India or on his hero cycle, the last one to sip McDowell's number 1 on any child's christening. His daughter Alva found divorce papers from a previous marriage. She never knew he was married before. Also a will where he left his garden spade for his mother-in-law. And so the poem goes. I'm not reading everything, but it's a long poem.
Lovely. So you get a flavor of
Yeah.
that. Reminds me of one of Shah Rukh Khan films, Fir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani, which was also peppered with brands throughout.
Okay.
It ended with what's मौत जैसी काली फांसी some brand of
Okay.
hair dye
Okay.
जैसी काली फांसी and you begin with may his tribe decrease. Tribe should increase. How do you get poems of this nature?
You know, I think we had some poem in school where it was "May his
Abu
tribe
Ben Adhem.
increase." Yeah,
Abu Ben
so I
Adhem.
just wanted. I
May his
never
tribe.
forgot that line. You know,
May
you
his
always
tribe
want to
forever
use
increase.
everything from anywhere and twist it and turn it. Yeah,
It's a Shelley poem, I think.
absolutely.
Abu Ben
Yeah,
Adhem.
yeah,
May his
yes,
tribe forever
yes.
increase. Lovely. And so this gives a lot of flavor of the inside lives of these characters. And you've written other poems
Yes,
like this.
there are strings. There's string,
Yeah.
which is a poem on a brother and sister. One is an artist, one is not, and the basic thesis is who is more empathetic about life, because you may be surprised sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and these give a deep insights into people's day-to-day lives and how that is poetic too. You have application to a school principal in the voice of a laborer, of a rickshaw puller,
Yes.
a wedding poem in which
A
all
wedding
these
day, yeah.
wedding day and
Yeah.
in which people
See,
drink.
Mohammed is already laughing. I think you loved it, right?
In which people drink child beer and all of that. So, yeah. So,
If you want, I can read that next. Yeah.
yeah, why don't we do
Yeah,
the
so I must
wedding
mention something about, like being an Indian English poet, there's so many times when you need to be so proper with your English and so straight-jacketed. And there's a time then when you just are so itchy to remove that tight corset of language and just do some badmash poems. And I took a lot of inspiration from Nizam Ezekiel because Nizam's poems had a lot of fun and frolic in them. Of course, now modern Amit Ranjan has that fun and sometimes too much of it, yeah, where there's so much of rhyme and tomb and womb and whatnot. But that fun where you get out of the strictures of language and you can just have fun, those poems are much more difficult to write because you need to keep so many things in mind. Like there was one criticism of Nizam's poems by some like sections of poets saying that he mocked the characters. So as he mocked their language, he probably mocked even them. So I wanted to not get into that trap. So that was even more difficult. How do you mock the language of a non-English speaker but don't mock the person if they don't have to be mocked? Too much. Too much of hard
So
work.
probably it's
but
not mocking at all. It is probably just a representation of the flavors.
yeah, but linguistic elitism immediately comes in play
Yeah.
when you do that as an
Yeah,
Indian
that's
English.
that's the thin line we had
That's
to
the
walk.
very thin line, yeah. So let me search for bedding day. You could.
It's next to that
yeah,
one, like Harry Mendon's.
What's the page number? Because I didn't mark that. Oh yeah, 51. Okay. Okay. Bedding day. When Santosh wanted urgent love marriage in just 15 days, he said, I need girl only for me. She should have faith fully for me. He looked for simple things. She should be a non-Facebook user, exceptionally fair, convented at least matric and virgin, or issueless and innocent divorcee. Completely non-feminist, but an extremist, and compassionate, patriotic to country, with a keen desire to increase India's military and sports capabilities. Expert in child raising, H1 visa no bar, powerful and rich. And congratulations, he found her. Her good name Priya, from top college, 22 or 21, with a dowry of $10,000. They went for a special wedding party with all drinks included: whiskey, vodka, gin, child beer, strong rum than old monk. The marriage hall with unisex laboratories for all those gay people was near Sharma Sweets and Snakes, right side to Anus English Academy, run by Anu Sharma. In front of Santosh Tailors, alteration of ladies and gents. And welcome tourist office, we speak English. At the backside gate, visitors were welcome, only regrets to their vehicles, and no encouragement of beggars. In trust, we God. Santosh vetted Priya. They look like hero and heroine with their crowns, no? Said all. They are laughing so much, showing their Colgate teeth. In such a type of marriage, go slow. This is accident porn area, said an uncle. The gifts were many. Bed sheets and Sony erection phones. Organic ghee from tension-free cows. And condoms in all flavors, like hot air balloons. The only villains were the in-laws, who took up the best gifts in compensation. Shoplifters will be prostituted, said Santosh, making his big eyes red. But who were listening? All males and females were busy eating or drinking. Only their dead bodies will go home, he rode, neither on foot or ambulance. Don't these people know I am yes for Santosh satisfaction guarantee? Above all vermins and men's, get my special vitamins. I want 2 children, both men, Yexium Yelian Zen.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know, these all this flavor is going to wither away in time.
Right.
With the onset of AI, and everybody will AI will talk to itself
Okay. In this language, improper English.
in proper English,
Okay.
in corporate English, not in proper, non-creative English probably.
Okay.
Because now you're getting Chat GPT on WhatsApp. So if you do not know how to speak English to your girl,
Yes.
then
Satisfaction unguaranteed.
Chat GPT will guarantee flirtatious messages, and maybe the girl also don't know how to speak.
English.
Then ChatGPT will give the answers back. So
Yeah.
both the girl
How
and the
boring.
boy.
How boring. Yeah.
Exactly. AI flirting with itself. That's what is going to happen.
Okay.
And there's an AI poem that you have, Mr. Baker. This is very interesting. Mr. Baker has a robot, and he has a family as well.
Right.
The family is juxtaposed with the robot. And what eventually happens to Mr. Baker is what is happening to boy and girl on ChatGPT is Mr. Baker could never hurt a fly. Now even a fly can hurt Mr. Baker.
Yeah.
Tell us more about this poem.
See, this poem is like, I've never discussed this poem because no one ever asked about it. How did you even find it?
AI.
No, I think this is one, Mr. Baker was just a deliberation of a social kind ki what happens when you turn obsolete and technology is moving faster than you. Then what happens to your family? What happens to the amdani? What happens to your sons and daughters also? The technology might be running even faster for them, not just for you. So I think it was just a deliberation taking a character. Again, I must say this, many times I prefer using characters when I'm writing, because that kind of nails the concrete. Otherwise it becomes so abstract for me, poetry, that many a times there'll always be a Harry Mendonça, there'll always be a Shalom, there'll always be the girl from Lal Bazaar. So Mr. Baker was one such who I followed to understand what's happening, how fast are we turning obsolete, and vis what? Capitalism? Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. And this is also a sort of, say, modern mythology we are trapped in. And there's a lot of use of mythology in your poetry as well. It's all pervasive across, so I won't name any poem. And you have smatterings of all kinds of mythology. It's from the Hindu mythology, it's from our folklore, it's from Christian mythology, from all over. What's that deep interest in mythology that, and of course it adds a lot of weight to the poem because the meanings that these mythologies carry, and to juxtapose a person's situation, to juxtapose a poetic situation in that is very interesting.
So thanks for bringing this out, because I would have never been conscious of using mythology, but I think it's not only all around us, but because they are the first stories ever told. They are like, they have creation myths. Doesn't mind whether it's Indic, whether it's Greek, whether it's African. But there was a time when I was almost a mythology junkie. Like, there was a because I was doing Joseph Campbell's learnings for screenwriting and the hero's journey. And so when you do that, you come across mythology of every world, like world mythologies, creation theories, and then you want to know more. What happens in Japanese mythology? What is it about African mythology? And somewhere I think what's interesting is that they do have a deep truth, because it's about collective unconscious. And they are not everything, because I think modern mythologies are what's happening currently. And I think what is happening in the present will always shape our imaginations more. But I think these inform you, and they kind of they never stop.
And we see archetypes playing in front of us.
And they never stop inspiring you, right? I mean, even if there are modern mythologies, they never stop inspiring you. You'll always find, you're right, archetypes everywhere. In fact, I must say this, that I noticed that we in India, even if in our workplaces, we are still a joint family. I feel that compared to, like Western civilizations, wherein you are an individual, I noticed that in India and in many Asian countries, the joint family is still overspilling, and you will always think of somebody as
family.
Yes,
That
in a
metaphor
very
is
funny
always
way.
used.
In a very funny way, there is always a family archetype. In all kinds, huh? Like the whole Mahabharata is playing out again. I noticed that,
Yeah, सब लोग टिफिन डब्बा लेके बैठ जाते हैं.
And you will always find wo kharab nanand type archetype. You will always find that lovely whomever sister archetype. You will always
Benevolent grandfather archetype.
you will always find a Tauji
Yeah.
who will be like, मुझसे परमिशन नहीं लिया आपने सक्सीड होने के लिए. You will be like, अरे ये तो ताऊजी है. You will find all of these people, good and bad. Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, you've not left the joint family or the family or the char diwari. You're still in the char diwari.
Of course, yeah. The metaphor is always used very strongly.
Absolutely.
We are like family.
So then,
he's like
isn't that an archetype of a bigger kind?
Of course.
Yeah.
And now I'll come to your prose poems. There are quite a few of them in this as well. And your penchant for haibun informs a lot of your poetry as well.
Yes.
And so there are a couple of them here: unreliable narration, lava. Both of them are very powerful. Would you like to read one of these and also talk about the effect of how haibun informs your writing process in general?
Yeah.
Not just
So
poetry.
I'll read lava, maybe a bit of if, but I'll just mention.
No, why don't you read unreliable narration? Half of it.
ठीक है. So that's, you said on the previous page, na? Okay. So now the fun part about poems are that, wherever I go, I find different readers love different poems, or they resonate with different poems. The interpretation is also different. So very few people have caught unreliable narration. In Bombay, Prakriti Maniyar had caught it. Otherwise, no one else talks about it. So I'm always surprised. But to tell you about haibun a little, now Nina, you know the haibun. Nina has... No, but that's lovely, because Nina was part of my workshop in Himalayan Writing Retreat. But the haibun is, for those who don't know, is a prose poetry form, and one of its tenets is musicality and lyricism. And it also has a haiku. You can have 100 haiku, but I mean majal hai ki ek bhi theek se likh paye, because haiku is a very difficult tightrope walk of brevity. And prose poetry somewhere liberates you, because you again don't even have to worry about line breaks. Forget about meter. You don't have to worry about line breaks also, because you can just write it in a lyrical flow and end it wherever you want in an abstract way. You put a haiku then, or you can tie it off like a flash fiction, whatever. And I'll read a little bit of unreliable narration. Sometimes I feel like that prisoner who has been so extradited, transported, prison to prison, that he doesn't challenge the felony of fate, doesn't think of family and children, just goes into a tangential recovery of time, a Z axis of query. He goes and joins the citizenship of dreams. He follows the traffic light of light banter, tipping the waiter the rightly recognized change. He doesn't wait to return, and when the shutters of his freedom scroll open, he is not thinking of something he never lost, but what he will lose now, the ability to be permanently lost. Now he will be found in the threads of the past, pulled to make the present look woven with continuity. I realize all are everyone's lovers, an orgy of the world in eyes that watch, suspect, judge, appreciate, greet, smile. There are 1,000 ways of lovemaking. That's why the world sustains bomb after genocide, after tsunami, after meteorite. Because people smile, diffusing nuclear energy, fissions of the heart, fusions of desire. He returns and his home was a foreign corner, and every street had a name, and hence unrecognizable, and people had roles of wife, daughter, brother, uncle, and couldn't be made sense of. I'm stopping here. Of course, it's a bigger piece.
Right.
Actually, Stillborn is in my paper asylum, my book of Haibun, the previous one.
I consider this very reliable narration. You just said unreliable narration. It's reliable narration that instead of that war is survived by love making, and eventually it's the fusion of heart and fissions of heart and fusions of desire which run the world in the face of war. It's reliable narration. But of course, with the logic of the world and how international politics operates, of course, it's unreliable.
Okay, I'll continue the poem then.
Yeah, sure.
Since all are on a chai break, so I'll finish this. Others, some of them are big ones, na? So then you feel like not reading the whole one. In Iowa, there are proverbs engraved on manholes. What would a manual scavenger find there, I wonder? A language gurgling gutter? Secret files of sewage, the fecal waste of imagination? The pee and poo of emeritus essays? Story worlds that stayed static or antagonists that were too sweet? Fireflies acquire the essence of moths burning to soot in their own ass fires. The burnt ashes spot the sky like night galaxies of stories, burning to be told, quivering to awaken. The prisoner in the unknown land can join dots on these constellations. Only he. You need an illiterate to read an unknown language and profess its translations into furthermore unknown languages. Burnt library, upside down alphabets of banned books. Burnt library, this is a haiku, upside down alphabets of banned books.
Wonderful. That's a very nice point to end. Burnt library, upside down alphabets. Banned books. And, well, one can go on, but I guess we've spent quite some time. Just end with one last question about.
Before we open it up to all of you.
The general tone and tenor of your poetry is very imagistic, and at times it can leave those images hanging, haunting. So it's a very interesting, let's say, modernist way of representation. I mean, coming from a classroom point of view, the way I would explain your poetry to students.
Oh my God.
But in general, the images which hang and therefore haunt because they hang. So one has to complete that image in one's mind. And of course, images are the vehicle of the wheel of poetry. That's most powerful images run the most powerful poetry. But your poems are very imagistic, impressionistic. Where does that come from? What's the formation? What are your inspirations behind that? And if you'd like to read one, for example, Ice Factory. After.
Yeah. So simply put in one word, Haibun.
Right.
I mean, the practice of Haibun, because it's lyrical and musical and prose-like, so you don't have to worry about the line breaks as well.
So that is the resonance that you found in Haibun.
No, no, no.
But
What
it
happens is
comes
that,
from,
no. So see, the practice of watching life as images, okay, comes from the practice of haiku and haibun. Before that, it's not like I wasn't a poet writing, but I could be using all my sensoria. So you will find more of that in Bombay Hangovers, that I've used noise of the city versus the quiet of the woman who's waiting for a son who's gone away and never to return, and she's looking after a sick son. Okay, and this is based on a bit of a true person, and the noise of the city is giving her company. The name of the story is Noise, but in those story collections or those stories, I noticed that I use a lot of sensoria. There is smell in another one, and then I go all all wild on smell. Okay, what does smell mean? From everything to everything. I mean, from the
of course, yeah.
pheromones in a marriage to the scent of petals, everything. And so then that was sensoria, right? But when you come to imagery, you see that haiku and haibun is a training. It's almost like a classical training where you start, because you're supposed to juxtapose images all the time, you start watching images. You know, whatever you have to do ना, आपका जो भी homework है ना, classwork भी वही है और जो classwork है, homework भी वही है. So when you're writing, you have to juxtapose in haiku. So you're constantly looking at not just sensoria but visual imagery.
Visuals, right.
And I think later
Has screenwriting also helped?
yes, screenwriting much later helped, because it is again a visual medium. So everything has to be told as a we. So either you hear it in dialogue or silence, or you are seeing it. And you know something, that a page of screenplay really eats away so much of prose, because an actor can just enact something in just a second, and
You
you
have to write
may
so
be
much.
writing no matter what, they can just do it, and it may not even require dialogue. So how much it eats up words. So you need to become even smarter than that, those words, because you're going at such a fast pace as a storyteller in screenplay. Than you're going in a novel, you're going deeper in interiority. In screenplay, you're going very fast. So I think the visuality does come from there. And otherwise, didn't we learn as young writers, show don't tell, show don't tell? I think that is one of the most common writer club or writer circle thing, right? I mean, to
Right.
say, so we've all gone through those phases where they say show don't tell. So I think somewhere that sticks. You want to show that.
Right. Why don't you read Ice Factory?
My God.
And that's
Yeah,
a
okay.
very interesting poem in the way how it
Okay,
ends.
okay. Let me just find it. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Again, no one ever picked Ice Factory, except I'm going to Goa. So one of the Parsi moderators spoke about this, because she was Parsi, and she also spoke about Pau, because Pau Wali is a slang for the Goan girl, right? Pau Wali, because we are supposed to be bakers or whatever. So she said, no, I was called Bavi ki beti. So immediately the other, when I was speaking to Ramesh, he was in Bombay, he said, I was called Idli because I'm Madrasi. So immediately people come and tell you what they were, and you realize it's such a common practice to everyone else, right? I mean, what were you called? Why are you smiling so much? Okay. Okay.
All the categories sound very interesting.
Come on, you would not tell your category. Okay, the Ice Factory. The Ice Factory owner Saroj is a Parsi of a diminishing Indian community. His voice so husky like saw scraping ice to slush. The factory produces ice slabs, ice cubes, ice blocks to keep fresh soup, drinks, juice. Sarosh visits on rare occasions when his phone rings, when glaciers are to melt, in sheepish Kalyan. Time moving backward. No industries, agriculture in this town, just a train junction. Stopover for two historical sites, fort and marshland. Today he receives a call at 8 to keep aside a slab coming by one of his trucks. He holds a jute sack blanket, and before anyone else sees, his mouth goes agape. A frozen woman, mouth ajar, eyes wide, hair far reaching, as capillaries, thighs marked in red branches, tree to roots is in a slab, preserved like in ice age. She doesn't seem local, fair-skinned in a red blouse, skin olive, porcelain goddess caught in surprise of a photo flash with mental, gun dust. The instruction is to ship her with other consignments, flake, tube, slurry. Between ammonia gas, gushes of water, common salt, engines of electricity, hums of tanks, Saroj hefts the slab, drives the truck himself. A quick exchange at the landing sites, flesh for fresh. Fishing harbour sites of aquaculture. This unknown woman is unnamed too for now, before the search for her visa country begins. Many unknown women hunts for lust, prize, or game, who have gone through slabs to the Arabian Sea until time preserves the melt of truth. Each second a loud plop.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now we can have a round of discussion. If anybody wants to say anything, has any questions.
Like you were talking about imagery, and I could actually imagine a painting by Mario Miranda, the way she read her poems.
Harry Mendonça. Okay.
Yes, Harry Mendonça. It reminded me of Mario Miranda.
I will take that as a big compliment because Mario Miranda is such a big figure everywhere in Goa also. Yeah.
And an entire story around it was beautiful.
Also the comicality, right? I mean, he will always, he's so observant and he'll, every character of his has such comicality. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
A couple of things. Number one, I love the way you use words. I mean, abrupt words put in between sentences. They give so much weight to your poems, actually. I really love that aspect of your poetry. And my question is that, what, according to you, gives character to poems?
That's very interesting a question, huh? ये तो बड़ा एग्जाम वाला क्वेश्चन हुआ. No. But thank you so much for saying that, because I think in poetry also what we forget to the first, to answer your first comment or compliment actually, because I also teach poetry. So the thing is that I always look at for the stages of craft, because art is in all of us. We are very artistic, because what is art is what we have in us, and we have a lot in us, all of us. But the craft is how you say it. So for me, that's a never-ending process. I don't think anyone can say that they are done with their craft. They are always evolving, finding new ways, experimenting. So that's the beauty, that as big your learning curve, that amount of experimentation. And of course, you're going to make mud and mistakes. So I'm glad that you found some words in.
See, for example,
Yeah.
mud and mistake.
Yeah.
Now, you wouldn't for most of us, we wouldn't think about putting these words together.
Yeah.
But then putting these words together gives so much poetry to it.
Thank you. And that's also my philosophy, because you have to liberate yourself by making mud and making mistakes and making masterpieces. I forgot the third part, which is very ambitious. Yeah. But mud, mistakes and masterpieces, you have to liberate yourself. There's a lot of poetry or a lot of language has to do with self conversations. Because before you're conversing with someone else or putting out something in the world, it's like also how you're seeing the world and how you're seeing yourself. The more you forgive yourself, you're going to forgive things that happen, because you will account for it. And and what was the other question?
What, according
Yeah.
to you, gives character?
Character to poetry. There are so many things, I'll have to really kind of collate. But I think, I don't know whether this falls in the realm of your question, but I think a lot about whether art is forgettable or not. Do you think that might come into it? Maybe, right?
Because
Yeah,
when you forget it, it's not a character.
correct.
I've not added character to my poem if I cannot remember.
Yeah, and at the same time, there is a lot of art, including poetry, that is written for the moment. You capture a moment, you get catharsis as a writer, and the reader gets that immediate catharsis. But the next day, neither do you remember the poem and neither does the reader. So there is that kind of poetry and art as well. And there are those that stick. Somehow it sticks. And you come back to some part of it. You come back to it. Like, when Nina just said, Stillborn. I mean to say, Stillborn is a very painful haibun that I wrote in Paper Asylum, and maybe I'll read that as well, but if we have time. But so thinking about character, I think as we live, we write. Okay, the deeper you live, the deeper you feel, the deeper you'll write. It can't be otherwise if you're a writer. Okay, so I think that's one thing which brings out the character, and you feel deeply, so you write deeply. So the reader feels deeply again, and yeah, I think a bit of craft, but I think it has to do with how you live, and that's why writers and poets are so sensitive, or artists are so sensitive, because they're feeling it at such deep levels, and then that brings the character to. Yeah, yes, I think okay, I'm not sure. Yeah,
Can I share something?
yes.
You know that in the name of Harun, I have not yet even started with age. But being in your class, what stuck me, and I think it stuck some other people also in the class, was that you started straight away with the craft. There was no introductions, no, exchanging pleasantries or things like that, or setting up a context,
Yes.
a climate, nothing. We jumped straight to the craft of
Yeah.
it. And some of us were, obviously kind of,
Yeah.
एकदम से काम पे बिठा दिया. But within, I think, minutes we realized that the craft that you were talking of was actually allowing or asking us to be more of ourselves in the present moment.
Yes.
It was all about feeling it, observing it, and absorbing it. And
Yes.
then the craft started to make sense. So somewhere I feel that your craft and your being, they are so interwoven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how, when the second day towards the end, we all were, invited by you to talk about ourselves. At least I can say for myself, but I know about others as well. How it became such a cathartic as well as therapeutic,
Yes, yes.
experience.
Yes.
Just talking of ourselves and seeing ourselves in the hairbooms that got woven in the class.
Yes.
And in between the class, the spaces in between the class.
Yeah.
So I think the hairbooms were actually expressions of life.
Absolutely.
So I'm the Nikambi one who didn't write even one.
No, but I'm waiting for you to write, Nina, and I know you will write when it's the right moment. And also that, why are we in a hurry with your haibun? There's no deadline, there's no exam, so you take your time, because when you do write, when it ripens, there will be a time, and poetry never has deadlines and exams.
That's what
Yeah.
I realized, that
Yeah.
when I actually read my essays or whatever, I realize much of that is feeling haibunish.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, that the way you are teaching
Yeah.
or handling your craft,
Yeah.
the way you are living in the moment is
Yeah.
so interwoven, so entwined.
Thank you so much for so intuitively suggesting that, because I think that is happening, and I don't know whether that's good or bad, that your work is becoming your life and your breath. Then you can't separate the word from the writer, and the writer is not at a working hour. There's no working hour. Even in your sleep, you're writing, in words. So I don't know. Maybe that happens to everybody. That happens to everybody.
That shows in the kind of variety you create in your art.
Right.
There's this not proper English thing, and then we have more intense pieces.
Yes. Yes.
And each of them is just as alive,
Right.
and as meaningful
Right.
in their own context.
Right, because at that moment I've completely drowned myself in that thing. Sometimes when I come away and I read my own work, I'm like, कि इतना कब deeply गए थे? But it must have been in that moment, and then you're locked in that trance, and then you come away, na? And then you're somebody else. Like, there was one friend who told me that there are so many voices in this book. How can it be one person? And I'm like, I might be schizophrenic, but we live so many lives and so many moods, right? As people, we are never one person. So all that comes true. But yes, I'm happy and glad that the introduction in the Haibun workshop, if it was kept for the last, you didn't mind it in the end, because
In the end, we didn't feel that it was
yes, because that's what I found in life in general, that you have these lovely biographies at the back of the book, or as writers and readers, you're always told, right, submit these poems and what's your biography. And our biographies grow longer and longer and more dinchak and fashionable because it's a marketing tool, right? We want to shine, and we take out the best things and they're shining and shining and shining. But that's all in the past. Today and now you're blank actually. So I wanted that moment in the workshop when you are blank, because whatever you are is the past.
And just couple more sentences
Yeah.
talking of your art. You know, at least I as a reader and listener, I'm kind of sometimes left wondering, is it a story in poem or a poem in story?
Yeah.
Both, and that is, I think, incredible. That's unique to you.
Thank you very much.
That's so
Thank you.
unique to you, and
आपने हाइबुनिया पकड़ लिया.
thank you so much.
No, because I'm a storyteller, I'm a screenwriter, I'm a haibunia, so the character is, and to be honest, Nina, there's such lovely characters all around us and people all around us. All my childhood community became characters, right? I mean, where can you run away from them? Where can you run away from people? I feel one of the most beautiful things of a populous country like India is that we share very narrow spaces per square kilometer, unlike in the West or some other place. So you are dealing with people all the time and you become intuitive about humanity because you're dealing so much. You can actually pick the mood so quickly. And then if you're a writer, poet, maybe even deeper. But we don't run away from them. No? So the characters always, like, kahan se aaye, kahan gaye is always very interesting, you know. Yeah. But thank you for so, intuitively reading. Yeah.
Do you still visit Bhubaneswar now?
Are you from there? Did I meet you there? Okay, no wonder you. I am going there to the walking book fairs in November, I think.
I met you at walking book fairs and then at Kalinga Lit Fest.
Wow.
There was a Lit Fest, Kalinga Lit Fest.
Yes. Odisha, no?
Yes,
Lit Fest. Yeah.
Odisha.
Yes, Odisha Lit, because I have not yet been to Kalinga. Yeah. Okay, no wonder you look so familiar. How come in Delhi?
From a job.
Wow.
I almost thought that question was for me. But I haven't. That's the first. Nobody has said that before, including her.
Sorry, your kurta gives it away that you're also from Odisha.
I'm not,
Oh, you're not? I thought.
but I have a Bhubaneswar thing happening all the time. My book is called The Knot of Jagannath, the latest one. It's of course Jagannath. I lived there for 2 years, so and I traveled extensively, some 10,000 kilometers to places which you would not have seen. Just madly traveled during the pandemic when the world was locked down.
The heat took a lot of your life.
Yeah. Odisha took away a lot.
No, it's
of
coming
things.
back. When I met him in Bangalore, he was totally like, now it's coming back.
Watering now.
There's more rain than heat. Heat is overrated.
I like that bro code that keeps happening.
But thank you so much, Rochelle. And the books are available for sale. And please join us tomorrow for a jugalbandi between us, Coins and Rivers, and her new book and my old book, Find Me Leonard Cohen, I'm Almost 30. That's at Kunzum DLF Mall.
Yes.
It's DLF Mall, Gurgaon, also at 6 p.m. Please do come if you can. Thank you, and the books are here. And now we can chat
And thank you
informally.
so much for your questions.
Thank you.
Maza aa gaya. Thank you, everybody.